The starship Valorian drifted in the quiet shadow of a glowing nebula, a wall of violet mist that rippled like the breath of a sleeping god. Inside its steel corridors, the hum of engines mixed with the low whispers of the crew. Everyone felt the tension. They were about to meet the Vorsk Dominion, a species older, colder, and far less patient than humankind. For days, every officer had been preparing for this mission. Every uniform was pressed, every word rehearsed. One wrong sentence could start a war. And now in the main briefing chamber, under the sharp lights and heavy silence, the crew waited for their commander to arrive. Lieutenant Mira Hale stood near the back, clutching her data tablet so tightly, her knuckles turned white. It was her first high-level briefing since joining the Valorian. She'd spent the entire night memorizing protocols, desperate not to stand out. But fate never cared for plans. The doors opened with a hiss. Commander Rylan Creed stepped in, tall and composed, his black uniform gleaming with silver insignias. His presence alone silenced the room. Everyone straightened, eyes forward. No one dared breathe too loud. They said he'd seen more battles than anyone on this ship. Some called him fearless, others called him ruthless. Either way, no one crossed him. "Let's begin," Creed said, his voice steady as steel. He glanced across the room, his gaze sharp enough to slice through excuses. "Today we speak with the Vorsk High Council. They don't trust humans. We've earned their suspicion, but we can still earn their respect." He paused beside the holotable. A projection of the Vorsk world shimmered to life. A planet wrapped in silver clouds and burning blue seas. "Every word matters," he continued. No emotion. No mistakes. They writ weakness like wolves scenting blood. Mira swallowed hard. Her throat felt dry. The commander's words echoed in her head. No mistakes. Creed turned suddenly. "Lieutenant Hale," he said. Her heart jumped. Yes, sir. You studied Vorsk language in the academy, didn't you?" "Yes, sir," he nodded. "Good. You'll handle the initial greeting. Speak clearly. Show confidence." "Understood." The air vanished from the room. Mira's chest tightened. This was her first time speaking before the commander, and before aliens who could turn one slip of the tongue into a declaration of war. She stepped forward, trying to steady her breathing. "Understood, Commander," she said, voice trembling. Creed folded his arms. "Now, imagine the Vorsk leader has just questioned your commander's authority. You must defend the fleet. How would you respond?" It was just a test, a simple drill, but all eyes turned to her. Every officer, every aide waiting, her mind raced. She had memorized hundreds of diplomatic phrases, but her nerves twisted her tongue. She wanted to say, "Our commander is honorable and strong," but the words tangled on the way out. "Yes, sir," she stammered. "You are hot and arrogant, I mean honorable and alert." The room froze, every officer blinked. Someone dropped a pen. A low hum filled the silence, the engines deep below deck vibrating through the floor like a heartbeat. No one dared move. Mira's face turned pale. Her mind screamed, "No, no, no! Did I just call him?" Commander Creed's eyes lifted slowly, calm, unreadable, like a storm behind glass. He didn't shout. He didn't frown. He just looked at her, long enough for her knees to tremble. I was trying to say honorable, sir," she whispered, her voice breaking. "It was a slip, I'm so sorry." Creed said nothing. He turned toward the holotable, pressing a command to shut it down. The light flickered out. "Briefing dismissed," he said softly. The doors opened. No one moved at first. They were too stunned. Then, one by one, officers filed out, whispering under their breath. Mira stood frozen, her eyes wide, shame burning through her chest. She wanted to disappear. When the last officer left, Creed walked past her without a word. His footsteps were slow, measured. He stopped by the door, spoke quietly, but loud enough for her to hear. "Lieutenant, report to your station at dawn. Don't be late." Then he was gone. The silence that followed was deafening. Mira stood alone in the empty room, her pulse echoing in her ears. She replayed her words over and over. Hot and arrogant. It was the worst thing she could have said. The commander was known for discipline, not humor. What would he do? Demote her? Reassign her? Or worse, send her back to Earth? That night, whispers spread through the ship like smoke. Crew members in the mess hall laughed quietly, calling it the hottest insult in the fleet. Others shook their heads, warning she wouldn't last the week. But while they joked, the commander sat alone in his quarters, lights dimmed, staring at an old battle recording. Soldiers screaming. Flames rising over Tryon 5. He turned off the sound, closed his eyes, and whispered to himself, "Arrogant, huh?" Maybe once he opened a small case on his desk. Inside was a medal, cracked and scorched, and a photo of his old squad, all gone now. His expression softened, just for a second. Then he placed the medal back, straightened his posture, and looked out the viewport at the stars ahead. Tomorrow they would enter Vorsk space. And tomorrow he would summon Lieutenant Mira Hale, the woman who had dared to call him hot and arrogant, and give her a task that would change everything. The engines rumbled, the stars shifted, and the Valorian sailed into darkness. Morning aboard the starship Valorian began with the low hum of engines and the faint glow of a nearby star spilling through the observation decks. But for Lieutenant Mira Hale, the light felt heavy, sharp, almost cruel. She hadn't slept. Every hour replayed the same moment, her voice cracking, her tongue slipping, the entire crew freezing when she called her commander hot and arrogant. Now, as she stood outside his private office, the memory struck again like a wave. Her hands trembled behind her back. The metal walls seemed to echo with whispers, the kind she heard last night in the mess hall. "Did you hear?" Creed didn't say a word to her. "She's done. No one survives embarrassing him. Arrogant. To his face? She might be cleaning vents by next week." She tried to push the voices away. She took a breath, straightened her jacket, and pressed the door chime. Enter. The door slid open with a hiss. Commander Rylan Creed stood at his desk, staring at a star map projected above the table. The light cast pale shadows across his face. His eyes, grey as frozen steel, lifted slowly toward her. "Lieutenant Hale," he said, voice calm. "Close the door." The words felt heavier than any shout. She obeyed, standing at attention, her boots locked, chin raised, though her heart hammered like a war drum. "Sir," she began, "about yesterday." He raised a hand. "I know what happened." Silence. She swallowed hard. "I want to apologize. I didn't mean—" "I know what you meant," he interrupted. His tone wasn't harsh. It was quieter, thoughtful. "I've been called worse. Usually by admirals." She blinked, unsure if that was humor or warning. He walked around the desk, stopping a few feet away. "Tell me something, Lieutenant. Why did you join the fleet?" The question hit her off guard. She hesitated. "Sir? Why are you here?" He asked again, softer this time. "Everyone on this ship has a reason. Some run towards something. Others run away. Which are you?" Mira lowered her eyes. For the first time since joining the Valorian, someone had asked her that. Not about rank, not about performance, but about her reason. "I joined because of my brother," she said quietly. "He served during the border wars. He didn't come back." Creed studied her face. "What world?" "Tryon 5, she whispered. "He was part of the 12th Marine Division." The room fell still. Creed's expression changed just slightly. Something old flickered in his eyes. Pain, regret. "I know that battle," he said. "Too well." Mira looked up. "You were there?" He didn't answer at first. He turned toward the window, watching the stars drift. "I led the strike team that was supposed to hold the line. We failed. Too many died." Her heart tightened. She had read reports about Tryon 5, one of the bloodiest conflicts of the century, but she hadn't known her commander carried that weight. "I'm sorry, sir," she said softly. "Don't be," he replied. "We carry our ghosts differently. Some hide behind silence, some behind sarcasm." His lips curved slightly. Not quite a smile, but close enough for her to see he wasn't angry anymore. Then his tone changed. "You made a mistake, Lieutenant, but it's not the end. In this fleet, intentions matter as much as precision." She nodded, relief washing through her like warm air. "Thank you, sir. I won't fail again." "I'm counting on that," he said. Then he tapped a button on the hollow table. A new map appeared, a cluster of worlds wrapped in glowing rings. "We're entering Vorsk Dominion space within 12 hours. You studied their language, their customs. I want you on the diplomatic team." Her eyes widened. "Me, sir? After yesterday?" He nodded. "Yes, you spoke without fear. That's rare. You'll learn control. Until then, I need your courage." She didn't know whether to feel honored or terrified. "Understood, Commander." He stepped closer, voice dropping to a quiet tone. "Out there, one wrong phrase can start a war. But sometimes truth, even accidental truth, earns more respect than flattery. The Vorsk believe honesty is a weapon. I'll remember that, sir. Good. Dismissed. She saluted sharply and turned to leave, but before stepping out, she looked back. Commander! Thank you for not— He raised an eyebrow. For not what? Exploding, she said awkwardly. He almost smiled. Lieutenant, if I exploded every time someone called me arrogant, this ship would be dust by now. A faint laugh escaped her before she could stop it. The starship Valorian glided through the violet haze of the nebula and entered Vorsk Dominion space. The crew held their breath as the swirling mist cleared, revealing a world wrapped in silver clouds and glowing oceans, Vornax Prime, home of the Vorsk High Council. For centuries, the Vorsk had been known as a proud and ancient species, tall, scaled with voices that rumbled like thunder. They respected strength, despised lies, and remembered every betrayal. And humans had given them plenty to remember. Lieutenant Mira Hale stood by the viewing window, watching the planet grow larger. Her heart pounded. She had dreamed of serving in space, but never imagined she'd be part of a first contact mission. Not after embarrassing her commander, yet here she was, standing on the edge of diplomacy and danger. Behind her, Commander Rylan Creed stood silent, hands clasped behind his back. His eyes were focused, sharp yet distant, like a man preparing for a storm he'd seen before. Lieutenant, he said softly, do you know what they call us? Mira turned. Humans? He shook his head. The unforgiven, the words sank into her chest. Sir, why? He didn't answer. His gaze remained fixed on the planet. Because once a human promise led to a massacre, and they never forget a broken vow. Before she could ask more, the comm channel crackled. Commander Creed, docking bay ready. The Vorsk Council is waiting. Understood, Creed replied. Prepare Shuttle 1. Minutes later, they descended through the silver clouds, the shuttle trembling as lightning flickered outside. Vornax's sky glowed with storm energy, casting long shadows across black mountains and mirror lakes. When the ship landed, Mira felt the gravity press heavier than Earth's. The air shimmered faintly, warm but filled with static. Vorsk guards stood at the base of the platform, their armor glinting with blue light. One stepped forward. Commander Creed, the Council awaits. Creed nodded and motioned for Mira to follow. Together they entered the Great Hall, a massive chamber carved from stone and crystal, lit by rivers of flowing light. The Vorsk High Council sat upon raised thrones, eyes like molten gold. The leader, High Speaker Vaughn Kesh, leaned forward. His voice was deep, echoing like thunder over mountains. Humans returned to Vornax, and yet we still see the smoke of Tryon 5, Mira blinked. Tryon 5? The name hit her like a jolt. Creed's jaw tightened. That war is long over. Vaughn Kesh's eyes narrowed. Time does not erase blood. The scars of that day still burn. Tell us, Commander, have you come to speak peace or to cover another betrayal? The hall fell silent. Every word felt like a blade. Creed straightened, voice steady. We came to build trust, not excuses. The High Speaker studied him, then gestured slowly. We shall see. Speak your terms. The discussion began, tense, precise, each phrase weighed like gold. Creed spoke of alliances, shared trade, mutual defense. Mira translated phrases into Vorsk dialect when needed, careful not to miss a tone or symbol. One wrong word could mean insult. But as the talks deepened, the Vorsk leader shifted the topic again. And what of the human fleet that burned Tryon 5? What of the false signals sent to lure our ships into the crossfire? The voice we heard, it was human. Creed froze. His eyes darkened. That mission is classified, Vaughn Kesh growled low. Classified truth is still truth. Tell us, Commander, were you there? The air grew colder. Even the Vorsk guards leaned forward. Yes, Creed said finally. His voice was quiet. I was there. Mira looked at him, stunned. He hadn't mentioned this before. Vaughn Kesh's claws flexed. Then you remember the cries of our dying warriors. The fire that fell from your skies. We asked for aid and you gave us death. Creed's fist tightened at his sides. That was not my order. Yet it was your fleet. Mira watched as the old pain flickered across his face, guilt buried under duty. For a brief moment, she saw not a commander but a man haunted by ghosts. We came to prevent another war, Creed said at last, not reopen wounds. Vaughn Kesh stared long and hard, then spoke a final warning. Then prove that your word is not smoke. The Vorsk remember, and so do the stars. The meeting ended. The air was thick with unspoken history. As they stepped outside, Mira walked beside Creed, her voice low. "Sir, you were on Tryon 5? He didn't look at her. "I was. What happened?" He stopped by the platform, gazing out at the stormy horizon. "We were ordered to deliver aid to both sides. But then someone changed the plan. A signal came, one I thought was genuine. It led us into a trap. By the time I realized, it was too late. Thousands died." She stared at him. "A false signal?" He nodded. "Someone wanted that battle lost. Someone on our side." The shuttle pilot's voice crackled over comms. "Commander, we've received an encoded message from orbit." Creed's eyes narrowed. "Play it." The holoscreen flickered to life. A single line of text scrolled across, glowing red. Tryon 5 was only the beginning. The screen cut to static. Mira's pulse spiked. "Sir, what does that mean?" He stared at the static, jaw clenched. "It means someone's still out there. And they haven't finished what they started." Thunder rumbled across the alien sky as the shuttle lifted from the ground. Lightning flashed, painting Creed's face in white light. Calm, cold, calculating. In that moment, Mira realized this mission wasn't just about peace. It was about secrets buried under ash. And her commander, the man she had once called arrogant, was standing in the middle of a storm he could no longer outrun. The starship Valorian soared back into orbit, silver hull gleaming under Vornax's twin suns. But inside, the air felt colder. The encoded message, Tryon 5 was only the beginning, still flickered in Commander Creed's mind, like a ghost that refused to fade. Back on the bridge, technicians scanned every relay. Engineers checked the signal's source. Nothing matched any known code. It was human-made yet untraceable. That meant only one thing. Someone had slipped into their systems. "Lieutenant Hale," Creed ordered, his voice steady but low, "you're trained in communications. I want you to trace that signal. Quietly, no reports. No chatter." "Yes, sir," Mira replied. She returned to the comm bay, fingers dancing across the glowing console. Her heartbeat matched the steady blink of the signal light. Whoever sent that message had hidden it deep, behind layers of encryption older than the war itself. Suddenly her screen flashed. A new line appeared. "Hello, Hale," she froze. "Commander." "Someone's responding." Creed appeared beside her, his eyes narrowing. "Open a secure line." The message shifted. "You don't know what he did. Ask him about the fire signal." Then the screen went black. Mira turned to Creed, startled. "Sir, what's the fire signal?" Creed's expression hardened. "That's classified, but someone on board knows it." "Sir, they're trying to reach me directly." His tone dropped lower. "Then we have a traitor." Before she could reply, alarms blared across the deck. The lights dimmed. Emergency sirens pulsed red through the corridors. "Power surge," shouted the engineer. "Core levels spiking. Someone's rerouting energy from navigation." Creed snapped into action. "Lock down the bridge. Seal every hatch." Mira followed him through the control hall. Smoke hissed from a panel as sparks lit the ceiling. The floor trembled beneath their boots. "Commander, we've lost contact with Deck 6. Cried an ensign. Evacuate that section. No one goes alone." Creed and Mira raced toward the lower decks, flashlights slicing through the haze. The hum of engines grew louder, deeper, like a heartbeat gone wrong. In the corridor ahead, shadows moved, fast. Creed drew his sidearm. "Hale, stay back!" The figure darted through the smoke. Creed fired a warning shot. It struck the wall, lighting up the mist. For a moment, Mira saw the glint of a visor, dark armor marked with Earth's insignia. "Earth Fleet?" she gasped. "Why would they—" Before she could finish, the intruder threw a small sphere. It rolled across the floor, flashing red. Creed lunged forward, grabbing Mira's arm, pulling her behind a support beam. The sphere exploded, a blinding wave of static that cut every light, every sound. For several seconds, the ship was plunged into darkness. When the systems rebooted, the intruder was gone. Only scorch marks remained. "Sir," Mira said, coughing through smoke. "That wasn't alien tech." "That was ours," Creed nodded grimly, "which means someone inside Earth Command wants us silenced." They reached Deck 6. The bulkhead doors had been forced open. Inside, the data core room was a wreck, wires sparking, consoles cracked. A single panel blinked faintly, still active. "Sir, look." Mira knelt beside it. On the screen, fragments of code scrolled, half-burned messages, corrupted signals. But one phrase stood out, glowing bright white among the static. "Project Dawnstar initiated." Mira frowned. "What is Dawnstar?" Creed's face darkened. A weapon. One we were ordered to destroy. You mean it's still active? Worse, he said. Someone's rebuilding it. The deck intercom crackled. Commander, hull sensors show 2 ships approaching fast and bearing Earth signatures. They're not responding to hails. Ready defenses, Creed ordered. Do not fire unless I give the word. Mira turned to him. Sir, if those ships are hostile, we can't outgun them. I know. His eyes sharpened. That's why we need proof before they silence us. Help me pull the data from this core. Every byte counts. Together they worked quickly, hands moving over cracked keys, rerouting power to the backup array. Sparks flew. The ship groaned. Through the viewport, 2 dark shapes closed in. Sleek black vessels, no flags, no call signs. Transfer complete, Mira said, sliding a data shard from the console. I've got it. Creed nodded. Good. The starship Valorian drifted through the edge of the nebula, hidden in a sea of swirling light. Blue mist danced across the hull, crackling with silent energy. The ship's engines ran quiet now, barely a hum, as if holding its breath after the battle. Commander Creed stood near the forward viewport, staring into the shifting clouds. Behind him, the crew worked in whispers. Sparks still fell from ceiling wires. Systems flickered weakly, struggling to stay alive. Mira Hale entered, clutching the small black shard, the one that carried the truth. She walked slowly, aware of the weight it carried, as if it could shift the course of their entire mission. Sir, she said softly, I've decrypted some of the files. You should see this. Creed turned, his eyes sharp but calm. Show me. She slid the shard into the command console. The screen came alive, lines of code dissolving into images, files, old mission logs. A symbol flashed first, a golden star rising from fire. Under it a single word, Dawnstar. Then came the voice recordings. Static broke and a familiar voice echoed, a deep, steady tone that froze Creed in place. If the aliens don't surrender, we deploy Dawnstar. The device will end all resistance, permanently. Mira frowned. Sir, that voice, it sounds like Admiral Rivik. Creed's jaw clenched. It is. We can't let the galaxy see humanity divided, the voice continued. If our own fleets discover the truth, erase them. This is the commander's burden. The audio ended in silence. Mira turned to Creed. Erase them, sir? That means they sent those black ships to kill us, Creed said, his voice low. She stepped closer. But why hide Dawnstar? What is it? Creed stared at the screen, remembering a time long buried. During the Orion War, Earth built a weapon, one strong enough to burn a planet's atmosphere. They called it Project Dawnstar. I was part of the unit that built it. You helped create it. I tried to stop it, he said, his voice rough now. But they told us it was just a deterrent, that it would never be used. Then, they fired it on the Zareth colony. Mira's breath caught. That was a mining world. There were civilians there. He nodded slowly. We were told they were enemy combatants. That's the lie we lived with, but now, it looks like someone's bringing it back. Mira felt her heart tighten. So all this, the signal, the intruder, the attack, it's all to keep Dawnstar secret? Yes, Creed said, and they'll do anything to make sure no one speaks of it. The console beeped again. A new file opened. This one showed a map. Several systems marked in red. Mira leaned forward. Those coordinates, they're all human colonies. Targets, Creed said grimly. They're planning another demonstration. The room went quiet. Outside, the nebula pulsed like a living storm. Commander, the helmsman called from across the deck. We're picking up another signal. It's faint, encrypted in old war code. On screen. The message flickered, distorted by interference. Then an image appeared. A woman in worn armor, eyes sharp and defiant. This is Captain Rhea Voss of the Dauntless. Commander Creed, if you can hear me, we know about Dawnstar. You're not alone. Meet us at the Orion Drift. We have proof. And allies. Then static swallowed the feed. Mira turned to Creed. Sir, she knows you. She called you by name. Creed's expression softened, touched by a memory. Rhea was my second in command long ago. She was there the day they fired the weapon. I thought she died in the blast. She's alive. And she's calling for you. He looked back at the nebula, its colors swirling like a gateway to the unknown. The Orion Drift is far beyond safe space. If we go there, Earth will brand us traitors. Mira stepped closer. And if we don't, more worlds will burn. Silence filled the bridge. The crew watched their commander waiting. In that moment, Creed's face carried the weight of 1,000 choices. Finally, he nodded. Set a course for the Orion Drift. Maximum stealth. The helmsman hesitated. Sir, that's enemy territory. Not anymore, Creed said. Now it's where truth lives. Engines roared softly back to life. The nebula's glow rippled as the Valorian turned, cutting through cosmic fog like a phantom. As the stars stretched ahead, Mira sat beside the commander. Sir, when you first met me, I insulted you. I said you were arrogant. Creed gave a small, tired smile. You weren't wrong. But I didn't see the whole picture then. You're carrying something heavy. You always were. He looked at her, really looked, and said quietly, Command is a lonely place, Lieutenant. You'll understand one day, she nodded. Maybe, but today you're not alone. Their eyes met for a brief moment, two soldiers bound by truth and regret, before the stars swallowed them again. On the distant edge of the galaxy, unseen by either of them, a fleet stirred. Black ships moved through the void like shadows rising from the past. Their orders were simple: erase Valorian, bury Dawnstar. And as the Valorian vanished into hyperspace, a final fragment of the message echoed in Mira's mind: the commander's burden. She looked at Creed and wondered, was the burden truth or guilt? Either way, the storm was coming, and this time no one could outrun it. The starship Valorian slipped out of hyperspace, emerging into a dark stretch of stars. Ahead lay the Orion Drift, a vast graveyard of shattered ships, twisted metal and drifting wrecks glowing faintly in the silence of deep space. It was the scar of an old war, and now it was their only hope. Mira Hale stood by the viewport staring at the wreckage. It's like a floating city of ghosts, she whispered. Commander Creed nodded slowly. Every piece out there belonged to someone who believed they were fighting for the right side. He turned to his crew. Run a full scan. Find the Dauntless. The sensor officer frowned. Sir, there's interference. Radiation pockets everywhere. Hard to get a clean reading. Keep trying, Creed said. The silence of the drift was heavy, pressing. It wasn't just the wrecks. It was the memories. Battles fought, promises broken, and now somewhere among them allies, or maybe enemies, waited in the shadows. Suddenly the radar blinked. Contact, the officer said. Bearing 217, closing fast. Mira's hand went to her sidearm. Sir, should we raise shields? Hold, Creed said. Let's see who's coming. Out of the mist of wreckage, a ship emerged, an old, patched but alive. Its hull bore scars of countless fights, but its nameplate still glimmered faintly. DSS Dauntless. Mira exhaled. She made it. A comm signal cut through the static. Valorian, this is Captain Rhea Voss. Stand down weapons and follow our beacon. You're in rebel space now. Creed smiled faintly, always the dramatic one. They followed the signal through the debris. Behind layers of broken hulls, hidden among wreckage, a small fleet appeared. 10 ships painted dark, lights dimmed. A secret armada, surviving in exile. As the Valorian docked, Mira looked around. So, these ships, they're all from different fleets: Mars Command, Lunar Guard, even old colonial units. Outcasts, Creed said. Soldiers who saw too much. A boarding hatch hissed open, and Captain Rhea Voss stepped through. She was older now, grey streaks in her dark hair, eyes sharp as ever. When she saw Creed, a small smile crossed her face. Still alive, she said. Didn't think I'd see the day. Creed nodded. You always did underestimate me. They clasped hands, old warriors meeting again after too many silent years. This is Lieutenant Mira Hale, Creed said. She helped uncover the truth. Rhea gave a brief nod. Then she's earned her place here. Come. There's something you need to see. They followed her into the Dauntless. Inside, the ship felt like a bunker. Narrow halls, low light, every console humming quietly. In the central chamber, a holographic map flickered to life. Rhea pointed to it. Project Dawnstar wasn't just one weapon. It was a network, satellite platforms hidden around key colonies. When activated, they ignite the atmosphere itself. One order, and entire worlds burn. Mira's eyes widened. And Earth Command is planning to use it again? Rhea nodded grimly. They call it Operation Rebirth. They want to destroy rebel sectors and blame it on alien resurgence. A clean slate. A new empire under one voice. Creed's jaw tightened. Revik's voice. Exactly. And now that you've seen the files, you know too much. That's why they sent assassins. Mira looked at the map. How do we stop it? Rhea tapped a red star. The control hub, I'm deep in the Orion core. If we destroy it, Dawnstar dies with it. But the place is crawling with defense drones and warships. We'll need every ship we have. Creed studied the map in silence. We'll go in together. You take the fleet. We'll hit from the inside. Rhea frowned. That's a suicide run. Maybe, he said. But I built part of that system. I know where its heart is. Mira stepped forward. Then I'm going with you. Creed looked at her. You don't have to. I do, she said firmly. You said the burden's not yours alone anymore. Rhea smiled faintly. She's got spirit. You should keep her. Creed gave a rare smile. I intend to. The room trembled suddenly and lights flickered. Alarms blared. Multiple contacts. A voice shouted over comms. Inbound signatures, Earth warships. They've tracked us. Mira's heart raced. How? We used stealth. Rhea cursed. There's a leak. Someone gave away our position. Creed turned sharply. Who had access to our jump logs? Everyone looked around. Faces tensed. Then one officer backed away slowly. Eyes darting. Creed's voice cut like steel. You step forward. The man shook his head. You don't understand. They promised. Before he could finish, a red beam shot through the air. The officer fell. A small transmitter clattering from his hand. Smoke rose from his chest. Mira spun. Shot fired Farsken from the balcony. The stars burned like embers as the battle of the Orion Drift raged on. Flashes of light cut through the black void. Ships breaking apart. Debris spinning into the storm. The starship Valorian dove between wrecks. Shields flaring, every panel rattling under fire. Commander Creed stood at the command deck, eyes locked on the chaos outside. His voice was steady, calm. The voice of a man who had already made peace with the cost, helm angle 90 degrees. Bring us between their forward cannons, aye, sir. The ship rolled hard, cutting through plasma beams. One blast grazed the hull, sending sparks across the bridge. Mira Hale grabbed the console, holding on tight. Shields at 30%, shouted the engineer. Keep them up. Creed barked. We just need time. Time for what, sir? Mira asked, breathless. Creed glanced at the data shard in his hand. The proof, the secret, the burden. To reach the control hub. Once we're inside, we end this for good. Mira nodded. Then let's make it count. The comm crackled. Valorian, this is dauntless. We're taking heavy fire. Can't hold much longer. Rhea, Creed said softly. Hold your line. We're moving in. He turned to Mira. Ready the infiltration team. We're going in by shuttle. Her eyes widened. Sir, under this crossfire? It's suicide, he gave a faint smile. Then it's a good day to die for the truth. The shuttle bay doors opened. The storm of battle roared in. Fire, debris, and death danced across the stars. Creed, Mira, and a small squad launched from the Valorian. A single craft darting through hellfire. Evasive pattern, Gamma, Creed shouted. The pilot rolled the shuttle past burning wrecks, weaving through shattered cruisers. An explosion shook them sideways, alarms blaring. Mira clutched her harness. 2 more hits like that and we're vapor. Then don't get hit, Creed replied, grim but calm. The massive control hub loomed ahead, a black sphere surrounded by defense drones, its surface pulsing with crimson light. The heart of Dawnstar, target locked, said the pilot. Approaching breach point. Brace! The shuttle slammed through a maintenance tunnel, scraping metal and fire, before grinding to a halt inside. The doors blew open. Smoke poured in. Move! Creed shouted. They rushed into the corridor, weapons drawn. Drones swarmed from the walls, black spider-like machines firing red beams. Mira ducked behind cover, returning fire. Left flank, Creed ordered. Take them down. They pushed forward inch by inch, plasma bolts lighting the dark. Sparks rained from the ceiling. One soldier fell, hit in the chest. Another dragged him back. Mira fired until her weapon hissed empty. We can't hold much longer. Creed tossed her a fresh cell. We don't need to, we just need the core. They reached the central chamber, a vast dome lit by red streams of energy. In its center stood the Dawnstar control nexus, a glowing column of light feeding into a giant console. Creed approached it slowly. This is it. Mira stared at the controls. Can you shut it down? I can try, he said, typing in commands. The console beeped. Access denied. Then a voice echoed across the chamber, cold and familiar. You can't stop progress, Commander. Mira turned as and froze. A figure stepped out of the shadows, dressed in black command armor. His insignia gleamed silver. Admiral Revik. Creed's eyes narrowed. Revik, the Admiral smiled thinly. You were always too sentimental. You think truth saves lives. Truth kills order. And without order, humanity burns. You call burning worlds order. Creed shot back. Revik spread his hands. The galaxy respects strength, not mercy. Dawnstar is the future. One voice, one rule. You should be honored to play your part. Mira raised her blaster. You murdered billions. Revik's gaze turned cold. You think they mattered? Pawns on a board. Their sacrifice gave us peace. Creed stepped forward. Peace built on ashes isn't peace. Revik's smile faded. Then you'll die with your principles. He drew his weapon and fired. Creed rolled aside, the beam scorching the floor. Mira fired back, striking Revik's shoulder. Sparks flew from his armor. Sir! Mira shouted. The console. It's charging. Creed turned. The Nexus pulsed brighter. Systems coming online. Dawnstar was arming. Stop him! Revik roared, lunging at Mira. They crashed against the control panel, sparks erupting. Creed rushed to override the sequence. Come on, come on. Revik struck Mira hard, sending her sprawling. He raised his blaster. Then Creed stepped between them, taking the shot in his side. Commander! Mira screamed. Creed fell to one knee, gripping his wound, but his eyes stayed fierce. Lieutenant! Finish it! Mira crawled to the panel, hands shaking, trying to remember his commands. Revik pulled himself up, fury blazing. You don't have the clearance. But Creed smiled weakly. She has mine. He slammed his hand on the biometric pad. Lights turned green. The console beeped. Countdown halted. Authorization, Commander Jalen Creed, override confirmed. Mira hit the final key. Dawnstar. Terminated. The core flashed, then imploded, energy collapsing inward. Alarms wailed as the entire hub began to self-destruct. Revik screamed, You fool! You've doomed us all. Creed looked at him, calm even in pain. No, we saved them. He grabbed Revik and dragged him toward the collapsing Nexus. You wanted to be part of history. Now you are. The explosion consumed them both in a blinding flash. Mira shielded her eyes as shock waves tore through the hub. She sprinted for the exit, flames chasing her heels. Commander! She cried, but there was no answer. Only light and silence. Moments later, the Valorian picked her up. She stumbled aboard, clutching the shattered data shard. Lieutenant? The helmsman asked. Where's the commander? She looked out the viewport. The hub was gone, a burning star fading into dust. Mira whispered softly. He gave his last command. Outside, the Dawnstar network flickered, then went dark. Across the galaxy, colonies once marked for death lit their skies in peace. In the quiet that followed, Mira stood tall on the bridge. She touched her badge, Creed's insignia now pinned beside her own. To all ships, she said into comms, this is Acting Commander Hale. Dawnstar is destroyed. The war is over. The truth is ours now. A chorus of voices answered back, weary, broken, but free. As the Valorian turned toward home, Mira gazed at the stars. They were quiet again, and somewhere beyond the light, she knew Creed was watching. He had carried the burden and passed it on, not of guilt but of courage, because sometimes the last command isn't to fight, it's to tell the truth. The galaxy was quieter now. The battles had faded into memory. The fires of Dawnstar were gone, leaving behind the long silence of peace. In orbit above New Terra, the rebuilt starship Valorian floated in the light of a young sun. Its hull gleamed again, repaired, renewed, yet the names of the fallen were still etched along its sides. Among them, one name stood alone at the top, Commander Jalen Creed. Inside, the bridge was calm. Officers moved quietly, steady hands on glowing consoles. At the center seat sat Acting Commander Mira Hale, her posture straight, her eyes older, wiser. She had grown into the uniform. Status report, she said gently. All systems green, Commander, the helmsman replied. She nodded. The voice still felt strange, Commander. But she carried it with pride now, not fear. Across the galaxy, transmissions echoed, news reports, messages, celebrations. The truth about Project Dawnstar had finally been released. Every file, every recording, every name. The people knew now what their leaders had hidden, and instead of chaos, there was unity. The Council of Worlds had dissolved the old command and formed a new alliance, one built on honesty and shared power. The Valorian had become a symbol, not of war but of truth. Mira stood from her chair and walked toward the viewport. Below she saw New Terra, a green world rising from blue seas, a fresh home for all who had lost theirs. Cities glimmered along the coasts, and in the sky ships carried refugees from once broken colonies. Beautiful, isn't it? A voice said softly behind her. She turned. Captain Rhea Voss stepped onto the bridge, her uniform crisp, her expression warm. She carried a small hollow disc in her hand. "Thought you'd want to see this," Rhea said, handing it over. Mira tapped it. A light shimmered, and there, floating before them, appeared the image of Jalen Creed. It was an old recording from before the Orion War, his voice calm, steady, full of purpose. "If I fall, remember this. The stars are not ours to rule. They are ours to protect. And truth. Truth is the only light that never dies." The image faded. Silence filled the room. Mira swallowed hard. "He knew this day would come," Rhea nodded. "He didn't fight to win. He fought so we could see." For a long moment they stood together, two survivors of an old war, now guardians of a new peace. Then the comms officer spoke up. "Commander, message incoming, it's from Earth Council." On screen, Mira said. A diplomat's face appeared, and was calm, formal, respectful. "Commander Hale, the Council has voted. The Valorian is to lead the first peace fleet. You'll oversee new colony restorations, Tryon 5 among them." Mira froze. Tryon 5? It was the world where it all began. The place of fire, the ghost that had haunted them both. "Yes, sir," she said quietly. "We'll make it right." The transmission ended. Mira looked at Rhea. "Tryon 5 will be green again," Rhea said. "Maybe that's how we honor him." Mira nodded. "By rebuilding what he lost." She turned back to the viewport. The stars shimmered, bright, endless, alive, down below. New Terra's children looked up at the sky, pointing to the silver ship that glided above them, the ship that had carried truth through fire. And somewhere in those stars, the name Valorian whispered like a promise.